tears of stage Tan Songyun breakdown during live awards speech, Soo Kai rushed to her side. The auditorium hummed with anticipation, a gentle murmur that seemed to pulse in time with the soft drums of stage lights glowing warm and radiant. The night belonged to dreams realized, to promises fulfilled, and to moments eternal. Tan Songyun stepped onto the stage, the spotlight a halo above her shining against the darkened world of seats and eager faces. Her gown flowed around her like moonlight. She held the trophy close, a symbol of countless hours of striving, of sacrifice, unseen by many. Her voice quivered at first as she began to speak words that reached into hearts. She spoke of gratitude, of mentors, of companions who steadied her when the path seemed lost. Tears welled in her eyes, shimmering like morning dew on fragile petals, and then a crack in her composure, a tremor in her tone, a gasp that echoed through the hall. Suddenly, she could not continue. The papers she held slipped through her fingers, fluttered to the floor like fragile wings mid-sentence. She broke down, convulsed in emotion. The lights seemed to blur in her vision. The applause halted in stutters, time stretched. In that breath-frozen moment, Soo Kai emerged from the back wing of the stage, his silhouette sharp against glare of spotlights. He crossed the wooden floor in strides measured with fierce concern. He reached her side, placing a hand gentle upon her shoulder, a touch that spoke louder than applause. He bent down, guiding her arm around his waist, steadying her posture, his presence a harbor in stormy seas. Her tears glistened on cheeks porcelain pale under flash of cameras. The audience watched, jaws slack, hearts tight with empathy. She blinked, trying to form words again, but her voice caught somewhere between sorrow and overwhelming joy. Soo Kai nodded encouragingly, leaning closer, as if to carry her words for her, as if to whisper strength. You are not alone. Stage crew quietly edged forward, offering tissues, water, because in moments like this gestures matter. Tiniest kindnesses become great rescue ropes. They held her arm. She inhaled deeply, chest heaving, as though lifting weights of emotion that she had borne alone until now. She spoke again, voice threading fragile into strong. Her words trembled, but they were there, expressing love to fans who stood by through silent nights and chilly doubts, expressing thanks to her family and to Soo Kai, who rushed to her side in courage. The audience rose as one, some stood, others sat, mouths open, some dabbing at eyes. Cameras panned in slow circles, capturing the luminous struggle between vulnerability and victory. This was more than an awards speech, more than recognition. This was humanity, raw and unguarded. Backstage, lights dimmed beyond the stage rim. Soo Kai whispered quiet words, coaxing her smile, coaxing breath steady. She lifted her head, chin trembling. She surveyed the sea of faces, the sea of light and darkness. She smiled, an uncertain curve, then a brighter arc. In that moment, the trophy she held seemed to glow brighter, as though imbued with every heartbeat that led her here, every tear shed in solitude, every doubt whispered in hushed tones, but also every cheer that lifted her, every hope that shone across distances. Journalists awaited this moment, saliva caught in throats, pens poised, her manager observing from sidelines, eyes glistening, others clasped hands, some exchanging glances, full of admiration, full of surprise that such fragility could carve such power. Musicians backstage whispering among themselves, knowing they witnessed something rare, not just talent rewarded, but the triumph of spirit. Soo Kai stepping sideways to let stage lights fall fully upon Tan Songyun, her face radiant, flushed with emotion. She spoke of dreams that once seemed distant, stars flickering beyond reach, and yet with persistence, with faith, with loved ones she reached out and touched them. She spoke of Soo Kai not just as actor, colleague, or co-star, but as anchor in storm, a presence in darkness. Her speech unsteady at times, but each word rose surer, as though each tear granted strength, each breath reclaimed power, each look at Soo Kai gave her courage. He nodded from beside her, silent support huge in its simplicity. The world saw two silhouettes united in that shared human moment. Audible sobs, perhaps unknown to many, erupted from fans and audience. Some reached for phones to capture this beauty, ephemeral yet indelible. Others clasped hands over hearts, feeling shards of their own hardships reflected in her journey. Tan Songyun paused, then raised the trophy high, light catching facets shimmering gold. She stood straight, backbone strong, though hands shaking. She inhaled deep, a long slow breath between heartbeat 1, heartbeat 2, heartbeat 3. Her final words rang across the hall, declaring gratitude, declaring that every tear, every ache, every fragile moment was worth it if it led her here, if it allowed her to connect this night to every soul who dared to dream. Then Soo Kai gently guided her from podium. He whispered soft words as they left stage side by side. Cameras flashed the love in their eyes, the solidarity in their steps. Fans roared applause that shook rafters, thunderous waves of adoration. Backstage, she leaned on Soo Kai. He held her steady, say nothing, needing words. Just his arm a shield, her smile returned, a delicate blossom in dawn light. In dressing rooms far from stage lights, she collapsed into laughter and tears mingled confusion and relief. She thanked her team, whispered names in soft tones. She touched the trophy, as though in awe she touched Soo Kai's hand, ever present, a soft anchor. Later authorities of the ceremony announced Tan Songyun as recipient of adoration not just for her talent, but for her courage to show vulnerability in public, for reminding all that success is not absence of doubt, but triumphant perseverance. Social media erupted within minutes. Fans posted clip snippets of her speech, Soo Kai rushing to her side, everywhere comments of how beauty resides in courage, how emotion unmasked can move souls. Hashtags trended, stories reshared, platforms lit up with messages of admiration, of gratitude. Many said that moment restored faith in authenticity, in celebrity culture, in humans being humans. Entertainment critics wrote that her breakdown, if one wishes to call it that, was not weakness, but artistry, emotion transmuted into performance of truth. They wrote of Soo Kai as knight not in armor, but in empathy, a companion in brightness. K-Romance Central published commentary praising the moment as one for the ages, a reminder that stars bleed behind stage lights. They stumble, they mourn, they aspire. They reminded readers that glamour often conceals struggle, that applause arrives after storms. The hall that night shimmered not with glitz alone, but with honesty. The cameras that captured achievement also captured trembling lips, teary cheeks, raw, hushed breaths. And in that shimmer, in that capture, millions saw themselves in her heartbreak, in her resolve, in her triumph. Long after she left stage, viewers replayed the speech, hearts choking, tears again, full circles of feeling resurfacing. The images of Soo Kai at her side, his hand on her back, her eyes glistening, became icons in photo stills, symbols of comfort. Tan Songyun slept that night, perhaps dreaming of lights, applause, of the journey, but also perhaps of every obstacle she overcame, perhaps of solitude conquered, perhaps of self found. Soo Kai watched over her, not in grand gestures, but in quiet presence, a whisper of constancy. The next morning, headlines glowed with admiration, words like moving, poignant, inspiring, everywhere, stories recounting the speech, the rush to her side, the shared humanity. Fans gathered online, in threads, in fan clubs, in comment sections, sharing their own stories of breakdowns, unseen breakdowns, private breakdowns, and how someone beside them made different small gestures huge. Many confessed the moment made them cry, made them believe again that in vulnerability lies strength, that courage is often simply choosing to stand, trembling, but standing. In interviews later, Tan Songyun said, "Every tear had reason, every moment of shaking was not shame, but testament to how deeply she cares, to her craft, to her audience, to her life." Soo Kai said it was instinct, not courage. He could not watch someone he admires suffer alone. He said strength sometimes is silent companionship, a hand, a shoulder, a steady presence. Yearbooks of entertainment history will remember this scene of awards night, when a star shone not just by brilliance, but by humility, when applause was not just for performance, but for the heart laid bare. K-Romance Central declared that night an epoch in celebrity moments, one that will be taught when speaking of authenticity, when speaking of courage, when speaking of what it means to be human. The echoes of Tan Songyun's tears and Soo Kai's rush will reverberate across time, reminding all that behind every light that dazzles there is darkness, that trembles behind every triumph there is struggle, and behind every smile there is story. Because in the end, the most powerful art is not perfection but imperfect truth, and that night they showed truth majestically. The lights of the Grand Seoul Performance Hall bathed the stage in a golden haze, casting long shadows behind Tan Songyun as she stood before thousands and millions more watching at home. The grand orchestra had just finished its swell, the music fading into silence as the host called her name. It was meant to be her moment of victory. The applause had erupted like thunder, echoing across the walls of history. Her name had lit up on the screen behind her in glowing calligraphy, and cameras zoomed in to capture the brightness in her eyes. She stepped forward with quiet grace, her hands clasped around the glass trophy. It sparkled like a frozen constellation, sharp and fragile, just like what she was feeling inside. But as soon as the mic caught her breath, something shifted. The smile she had worn for the cameras faltered. Her voice, clear and familiar to audiences across the world, trembled. And in that trembling, the first thread of composure began to unravel. She tried to speak, her lips parted, but all that came out was a breath. Not a word, just a breath. Then the silence deepened. And in that silence, the weight of years poured in. Years of auditions, sleepless nights, quiet sacrifices made in hotel rooms between scenes. Years of chasing a dream while carrying burdens unseen. A single tear slipped down her cheek, catching the light like a falling star. She wiped it quickly, smiled nervously, and tried again. Her voice broke. Again. The audience leaned in, as if proximity could will her strength. The hosts looked off stage, uncertain. The stage crew hesitated. And then, with a soft thud barely caught by the microphone, the note cards in her hand fluttered to the floor. It was the first sound of collapse. Her shoulders heaved. She pressed a hand to her chest, as though trying to keep herself from shattering into pieces. The elegant poise that had carried her through countless public appearances now gave way to something far more human. Her knees buckled slightly. She staggered a step back. The trophy nearly slipped from her grasp. From the audience, gasps rippled like waves. And then, as if out of a scene written by fate itself, Soo Kai emerged. He didn't walk. He moved. Swift. Direct. Certain. From the wings of the stage where he'd been watching, he crossed the floor with purpose and focus, every step echoing through the sudden quiet of the hall. Cameras whipped around to catch him, the co-star who had shared screens and scripts with her, now sharing this unguarded, pivotal moment. Tan Songyun didn't even turn to look. She didn't have to. She felt his presence before he even touched her. He reached her side, gently placing a hand on her lower back, steadying her, grounding her. His other hand lifted the fallen note cards without hesitation. She looked up at him, and in that look was a conversation no microphone could capture, 1,000 things said in silence. Soo Kai nodded at her, a slight tilt of the head that said, "I've got you." A deep breath followed. One, then another. He leaned closer, whispering something only she could hear. Her lip quivered, and a quiet smile broke through the tears. She nodded. That was when the entire auditorium felt it. Not pity, not worry, but awe. There was something magnificent in witnessing a star fall, only to rise again with her heart wide open. It was as if all the perfection that had been expected of her, all the roles, all the poised appearances, had melted away, revealing something far more compelling: truth. She wiped her face gently and turned back to the mic. The tears hadn't stopped, but her voice returned, whisper soft but clear. "I thought I would be strong tonight," she said. "But I didn't realize how much this meant, not just the award but this moment. With all of you." Every word trembled like a violin string. Some in the audience already had tissues to their faces. Even the camera operators looked visibly shaken. Behind her, the screen still bore her name, now soft against the dimmed lights. She glanced toward the audience again, and in her gaze was something deeper than any script could ever write: a lifetime of struggle, joy, pain, and perseverance coming to the surface in one raw, unfiltered wave. She continued, this time her voice more sure. "This is not just for me. This is for every girl who thought she wasn't enough. For every night I questioned myself. For every time I wanted to quit, but someone believed in me. Tonight, I stand here because I was never alone." The crowd rose. Not in a slow, polite ovation. It was instinctual, a rising tide of emotion, lifting every person to their feet in a standing ovation that seemed to shake the walls themselves. The camera panned back to Soo Kai, still by her side, his face filled with admiration and silent encouragement. He stepped slightly behind her, making sure the spotlight found her fully. The image of them standing there, Tan Songyun radiant in tears, Soo Kai unwavering beside her, became a visual etched into the memory of a nation. It was no longer just an award show. It was a reckoning with vulnerability, a celebration of courage, a story of strength found not in polish, but in presence. And somewhere backstage, the producer whispered to an assistant, "This will be the moment they remember. Not the wins. This." Indeed, by the time Tan and Sue exited the stage, hand in hand, not romantically but with shared solidarity, the narrative had already begun to shape itself in the hearts of the viewers. Screenshots of her tearful face, of the trembling smile, of Soo Kai's protective posture, they exploded across the digital sphere. Fans from every continent translated her speech into their own languages. Artists began sketching the scene. Commentators and columnists called it the most powerful 3 minutes in awards history. What people saw wasn't weakness. They saw something sacred. The moment a star showed us that even when the weight becomes too much, you do not fall alone. The moment Tan Songyun collapsed, only to rise, not despite her tears, but because of them.